that's all the veins mapped in. So now I'm going to work on building up the tones on the leaves, starting with the 4H pencil. And this is a way of working that I'm more familiar with. This is what I typically do. Here I'm working on the bottom right hand leaf. This is typical shading, just back and forward with the pencil tip, as you typically would expect, only not normally as fast as this, so it must be getting close to dinner time. Looking at my reference, I'm noticing that there's a very light mid-tone with some highlights, which I'm trying to keep clear of graphite. I've moved the paper to the side there because in transferring the image that I wanted to draw, I kind of lost the edge a little bit. So I'm using the paper as a guide to find the rectangle that is the original proportion of the reference photo. So it's a scaled drawing. The plant, I believe, is called a forget-me-not, and I noticed from the real plant that's in my garden and from this photograph here that they've got a kind of puffer jacket kind of effect on them. So here you can see me trying to suggest the kind of bubble effect that is characteristic of that leaf. I just do that by shading in. I make contours with the pencil by successive visits of these contours and then try and soften them with grading. So I'm using the tip of the pencil there, so I'm trying to re-establish a line that I think must have gotten lost along the way. By tilting the angle of the pencil more perpendicular to the surface that you're drawing on, these 4H pencils can make a very strong, fine line, but you have to be careful too, because if you press too hard, you can indent the surface and leave a groove there. You might not want that, but I can see reasons for having that. There is an embossing technique that you can use with special little embossing pens that you get. Here I'm using the blending stump to blend the graphite that I just laid down on the leaf, but you'll notice that I incorporated some from the negative space roundabout. I just brought that in a little bit to soften that edge there, and now I'm going over with an eraser pencil to lift out some highlights, trying to create that bubble effect, and then using the brush to swipe up all the poop. The pencil stump can be used to draw, so with the 4B graphite that was already there, I'm using the the paper stump to move that graphite around, draw subtly with it, and then also merge all the graphite together and blend it so that some of the scratch marks that are left by the pencil are blended into a much more softer arrangement. Again, using the edge of my sacrificial paper, the paper that I put under my hand to protect the drawing underneath, I'm using that as a guide, as a straight edge to help find that rectangle. In a future video, which is in production at the moment, you'll see that I've re-established that line with tape, with a low-tack masking tape. Here I'm trying to put graphite out very quickly, so you see I've changed my grip. I was a kind of underhand grip, there it is again, and that's very good for laying on like a base coat. and then I may adjust the grip to draw more in a much more controlled way into the areas where I want the graphite to be built up. Here is just a kind of flat tone, and now working into those vein areas which were laid down with that softer 4B and blending it so that there's a nice kind of transition. If I'm correct, I should switch over to a rubber here now and lift out those kind of highlights that I was mentioning, but also those kind of puffer jacket bubbles that I mentioned before. And of course, staying true to form, there is leftover detritus from the rubber by doing this technique, so we should sweep up immediately so that that doesn't get ingrained into the drawing. It's very, very difficult to remove those kind of grainy bits that you get. The rubber has lifted out the graphite, but it will do so in a very abrupt way. So here I am using the blending tool again to soften those edges as well. Nudge it all back and make sure I have all the transitions between my tones the way that I want them to be. So that's it for this video. Thank you for joining me. See you in the next one.